Do you go all in and buy a brand new train, or do you save a little bit but have some risk with getting a used one? Regardless of what scale you're into, there's a ton of variables that go into your decision. So we're going to break down all the things you should be considering when you're looking at buying model trains. Let's break it down. You might think I don't know a whole lot about buying new trains because I called my railroad the secondhand overland. And yes, I focus a lot on getting things secondhand, but even I know there's some things you should just buy new. And if you're not looking for new stuff and you'd like to get something at a good price that you can always get fixed if something doesn't go right, I'm talking, of course, about checking out trains.com. Trains with a Z. This website's been fantastic, and I've already made a video going down how best to utilize and a couple of top tips that I've made to make the best use of everything that trains.com has to offer. If you're watching and you'd like to support the channel and you'd like to save a little bit, you can use my code DATAFIED at checkout to save $10 off your order of $50 or more. It's good for one purchase, so if you've already used my code, first of all, thank you. Second of all, there's a bunch of other codes that are out there as well. So check out this list and save a little bit. So the debate between new and used. It's actually not as cut and dry as you might think. And that's kind of when I wanted to break this stuff down because, again, there are things that I have purchased new for the secondhand overland. And I typically try and weigh my options between, risk of getting something used that may be worn down or messed up or whatever, but the pro of saving some money. Because at the end of the day, if you buy something brand new, and a couple years later, you could have gotten it used quite a bit cheaper, you have to kind of weigh how much you're saving with how much risk is involved with getting something used. Now, there is something like if you're getting some new old stock or old new stock or however they say it, if you're getting something that's been in the box all of its life and hasn't been run and it's just older, that's probably one of the most risk-free ways to go about getting something. Sometimes you don't exactly know if that's true or not because, especially in the case of Lionel trains, it's really easy to be able to open a box, take the train out, run it, clean it up, put it back in the box and say that it's never been run because, you really can't tell in some cases. Unless you're looking for wear on, on the wheels and rollers and stuff like that, it can be difficult to discern whether the item you're getting is actually new in box or if it's made a couple laps before it got sold for double the price. Now, back to price. It's a big thing because, I could buy one brand new engine out of a catalog, or I could buy one and a half, sometimes two for the same price, depending on what kind of a deal I'm getting. But sometimes when you're getting a really great deal, you're assessing a lot more risk. If there's a lot the train needs, if you're great with tinkering and fixing stuff, then getting a fixer-upper, may be a good financial option for you because you can get this really great train that had a couple things broken. But buyer beware, sometimes you might bite off more than you can chew. Let's take this guy behind me, for example. I've been working on this T1 duplex for about a month now, and I'm making some headway, and I'm not working on it every single night, but it's definitely one of those things where I purchased it used, and there was more wrong with it than I had bargained for. I'm more of a parts and paint kind of guy. If something's missing or broken or some paint is missing aesthetically, I can clean that up pretty easy and get it looking great around the line. Those are kinds of things that you'll look for that will bring down the price on an item that are typically pretty easy to fix up yourself. You can just go to a hobby shop, pick up some touch-up paint, and especially since most locomotives are black, just get some black paint and touch up where it's missing, and you can save yourself quite a bit of money on a used train and make it look like new really easily. But with the advent of a lot of electronics on things, all these boards that are running complicated electronics and control systems, it's not only hard to repair, but sometimes impossible to find the parts for. Unfortunately, especially in the case of Lionel, A lot of their spare parts for boards and things have been taken completely off the market. And that really hurts the used market, unfortunately. I'm always looking at ways to make sure that I'm protecting myself financially with these things. So I'm trying to get them at a good enough price to where if things really do go south, then, I'm not completely upside down on the thing. Or things like eBay buyer protection, or the ability to return things to stores like trains.com, for example. It makes it really kind of take some of the stress off, knowing that I could purchase this thing, things could go south, and I can wash my hands of it and call it a day. But that's always something to keep in mind, especially when you're buying stuff secondhand or going to a train show. It's nice to be able to see the products in person, but sometimes, things can still go wrong from there. And you want to make sure that you're getting something that you can realistically work on. Because if you can't, then you've just got a fancy paperweight. There are pros to buying trains new. Yes, they're more expensive than getting stuff used typically, but you're getting exactly what you want, especially if it's something new that you've managed to go to a store to see and look at and all that stuff, have it there in your hands. And I prefer this method to buying new trains to just ordering stuff, because ordering, they don't usually give you a time frame on when they'll arrive. Sometimes they're within the expected parameter, but other times things can really get prolonged and it can be a while before you get what you paid for. But the other risk sometimes with pre-orders, at least with Lionel, is colors. And I hate to be that guy that brings it up, but if you were married to the idea of getting this train and there's colors that have to be right on that train until you see it in person, you may not really know what you're getting. And if that's enough of a big deal to you, then between the weight and the cost, and then it showing up and being wrong, that can be a pretty big downer for you. And I don't know that, the elevated cost and the wait time make that any better of a situation to get yourself into. Now, if you're getting something simple, like a black train with white lettering, like Union Pacific, I have plenty of, pretty risk-free to be able to say, I wonder if they'll get that shade of black right. I wonder if the block lettering on the tender will be the right font. You can pretty much bet if it's something simple, you'll be fine. But if you're looking at something more colorful, that might be an issue. It might be better to wait and see either what they're like when they hit the shelves or what they're like on the secondhand market. But there is risk with that as well. I suppose this is true of both new and used trains, because no one catalog from any manufacturer is going to have every train that you've ever wanted. Things get released in certain years and then it may not be in the catalog for several years, sometimes ever. Have you guys ever seen another run of the Lionmaster Hudson? I haven't. I mean, you guys probably haven't even heard of that engine, but would be really cool to have another one of those. Especially if they plan on celebrating their 125th birthday with a bunch of Hudsons. Would be really cool to get a new Lionmaster Lion Chief 2.0 Hudson. But I digress. When you're looking at stuff in the catalog, that's the best time to guarantee that you're going to get it. And to me, that kind of justifies the cost in some situations. But let's take the Lionel Volume 2 from 2023 into consideration, because those are starting to arrive in people's hands who ordered that stuff. There were 280 consolidation steam engines that were in that catalog. And some of those steam engines had never been made, and it was really neat to see the different colorations, or like the one with the snowplow and stuff like that. But if you're like, oh man, I want a consolidation, they've been making that type of engine since the late 90s. So looking back into pre-owned stuff and just searching for these very common engines, you can save yourself quite a bit of money. I want to say the 280s that were in the catalog were about 800 or so. At least that's kind of what they're going for now on sale price from their, distributors and stuff like that. $800 for an engine, but you can look up online and find $350 for a pretty nice same casting, same details, just probably fewer electronic features, 2.8.0 consolidation. And if you want a few more features than that, but you still don't want to pay full price, you can look for, the 2015 run that they did of them. There are different times that popular style of engine has been built multiple times, and all you're really changing are paint schemes and some voices. And if it's Lionel, you might still be getting, their generic crew talk from 5-10 years ago.
Dispatcher, we're ready. Is it okay to pull? Over.
So sometimes when you're looking for new, you don't find what you're looking for because it just happens not to be in that catalog. And you can wait for the catalogs to come out and see if you get what you want. But the used market has a lot more options, but depending on what you're looking for, it can be way trickier to find that stuff. There are still engines that I've been looking for the last year that I'm either just now finding or still haven't managed to find, at least for the right price. And that wait can really kind of take it out of you. So sometimes the new option makes more sense because other than maybe waiting, several months, upwards of a year sometimes for that engine finally to arrive, you at least know it's going to arrive, as opposed to, well, I've been looking for this engine for a long time. I finally found one. You jump on it, and maybe it wasn't the right one. There really isn't a best answer of new versus used, but one of the things that I've found has been a bit of a given for me is track. And in my case, fast track. Lionel Fast Track is not the most durable stuff on the planet. And even when I've purchased starter sets that come with the track, I've noticed that track, it's not that old, but there's rust or, kind of scoring on it, or things have gotten discolored. Getting used fast track, to me, typically isn't worth the trouble because finicky connections, having the track not all look the same because of fading or things like that. Getting used fast track is something that I've kind of avoided, and I kind of had to learn to avoid. I've got a whole bin underneath this section of track that's full of fast track that I didn't end up using here on the layout because of the condition that it was in. And it was cheap to get all that fast track, but I still ended up having to get more fast track to make the 64 feet of track that make up the secondhand overland. So to me, if you're going to get anything new, get stuff new that's going to, take a beating. Your track is probably the most used and most underrated thing on your whole layout. So if your track isn't good, it doesn't matter how fancy your engines are because they're not going to work right when they don't have the right connections. So you buy new when you see exactly what you want and you don't want to miss out on it, but you might end up paying a bit more for it. You buy used when you can't find what you want new, or when just the used prices are good enough anyways, and just buy new track. I typically have gotten burned more often than not buying used, especially used fast track from Lionel. And it may differ depending on what scale, what manufacturers, what sort of stuff you're looking for. But the main thing still to come into play for me that I can impart to you is to weigh your cost versus risk. If it's going to cost a lot, you're typically going to lower your risk. But how much of that cost are you willing to go for when you could get, again, an engine and a half, 2 more engines for the same price as that brand new one? But that risk goes up when that cost comes down when you're looking at the used market. So make sure that if you are going to go with the used market, if you don't want to get burned, get from reliable sources that either have some sort of a return policy or even have a shop that can work on them, like my friends at trains.com. So if you've got ways that you collect your trains, whether they're O scale like we have here, or you've got N or Z or G or whatever model trains you're running, let us know down in the comments. Let me know what tips and tricks you can impart on everybody else here. In the meantime, subscribe, like, comment, let us know. It's always fun interacting with you guys. Been having a blast making content here with our railroad, with my son, enjoying this stuff together. and just the community of people around this has been a lot of fun to be part of. So thank you. And yeah, happy railroading.